friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another Ask Wrestle Juice. You guys got a bunch of great questions and I'm going to answer them. I know this is my third Ask Wrestle Juice in a row. I like to mix it up here at the channel, but lately I've had some stuff going on and I haven't had an opportunity to sit down and think about some new channel ideas. If you guys have any ideas for like videos for me to do here at the channel, I welcome them at this point. I got some ideas. I got some cool ideas coming up next week. And of course I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, Steve, why don't you do some more Stone Cold? Hey, here's an idea. I'll do a Stone Cold retro review. You guys leave me some ideas for what events to cover, what retro events to cover as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Maybe I'll do that. I'll have Rob edit that stuff. I don't know. It's just an idea. Let's dive into these questions. First up, from Michael Carlson. I've met Michael Carlson before. Swell guy. He says, you ever consider covering Stardom? He says, I believe Stardom is the best wrestling happening currently, and I'm really hoping they can reach huge levels of fandom in the next 2 to 3 years. Man, I get the same impression. There seems to be a lot of buzz percolating over Joshi wrestling in general over the past couple of years, but certainly now it seems to be percolating. And I got a video idea for that I'd like to do and grab one of my awesome friends that actually knows a lot about Joshi wrestling. I have several. And yeah, you guys should be watching the Church of Joshi every Sunday on the Kayla Vision channel over at Twitch. It's terrific. Yeah, I'd like to. I would definitely. That's sort of next on my list of things that I'd like to cover, at least on like a big show to big show basis. Kind of like the way we do New Japan now. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to dedicate to like covering New Japan as much as we'd like to, but there's so much stuff out there. It's hard to cover everything over at Going In Raw. So yeah, I'd love to. I think it's probably going to be one of the next thing that sort of blows up a little bit in the wrestling community, because honestly, my favorite thing at Wrestle Kingdom this year was the Stardom match. Wasn't even any of the New Japan matches. Although Wrestle Kingdom was fine. Isaac B, do you think that if Big E would have moved on from his current persona of being entertaining New Day man with hints of intensity and approached more of a badass serious persona, would he have held on to the title longer? This is not going to be a popular opinion. Yes, I do. I don't think he would have had to have ditched his comedic persona at all. I don't think he would have had to have dropped that. I do think a much more drastic. I've mentioned this before in the video I did about the Big E title reign, in that every memorable title reign was preceded by a rebrand of sorts from that a wrestler. Triple H went from silly DX guy to being the Game. John Cena went from being like sort of the generic prototype guy to being the Thugonomics guy, so on and so forth. You see it. You see it all the time. That's why I think largely Roman Reigns' 5 years of trying to become the face of the company fell so flat, and why the Tribal Chief is doing so good now, because it's a change. It signifies something different. And I do think that if he had rebranded to a degree, I think that, yeah, that would have been awesome. I love the Festivus gear. I think it's great. The Seinfeld references are hilarious. Does that scream to me guy that can like really legitimately beat everybody and be WWE champion for reals? No. Him cashing in on a downed Bobby Lashley was not a strong way to start that title run. I did a whole video on it. You can go check it out here at the channel though. Critical Sting says, out of the last few batches of releases, is there anybody that sticks out to you as the sleeper that people aren't talking about enough? I'd like to see more of Leon Ruff. He got released a while ago, but I'd love to see one of the bigger promotions, or even, well, they are one of the bigger promotions, New Japan, try to go after Leon Ruff. I think he was awesome in NXT. I'd love to see him in the junior division in New Japan. I think that'd be swell. I want to see more Leon Ruff. Chozo asks, how come when people hear about WWE releasing talent, they say they're done? And do the views never reflect that? I know some people may just support a certain wrestler or wrestlers, but I feel that no matter how low a company will go, people are all talk. So I guess the question is, when there's a big batch of releases, why isn't there a commensurate sort of drop in enthusiasm in the product and the views go down? I think that's kind of indicative of the niche aspect of wrestling internet. The community of hardcore wrestling fans that say they're done with the WWE. We've seen this before. Seth Rollins versus The Fiend, for example, people said, I'm out. Kofi losing the title to Brock, people said, I'm out. Releases, people say, I'm out. The WWE still sort of chugs along and keeps it going. Like SmackDown does pretty good in the ratings. Raw, comparatively speaking, with other programs on Monday night, still does pretty good. But if you extrapolate over like a 5-year period, people have been done with it and they have left, and the views are dropping over a longer period of time. So, you know, I think that people do leave. I just think that it's not going to be in drastic swaths of hundreds of thousands of people at a time. Let's see here. Ryan Hansen, who do you feel would be the biggest Forbidden Door entrant into the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches, both realistically and dream entrants? Well, clearly, dream entrants, I think, would be MJF to feed into a story with AEW. That would be a big deal. In order for it to be more realistic, I think a Chris Jericho is realistic. I think that'd be still pretty huge, but he's still on good terms with WWE. He did the Broken Skull sessions. I think that's realistic. Probably won't happen, but I think I wouldn't be completely floored if that happened. Let's see here. Luke Williams Bucac asks, what are your thoughts on wrestlers changing elements of their characters when re-debuting as free agents? Could this be a beneficial move? He talks about Matt Cardona. I think it's vital. I think it's not just beneficial. I think you have to do that. Unless you're like a Malachi Black, who basically just continued his character on from when he was on SmackDown, but he took it a couple levels up because I think he realized people are interested in what they were going to do with that. And now he can be free to take that to the next level, which is also an interesting way to go to establish a continuity bridge between where you were and where you're going. I thought that was an awesome idea on his part. Matt Cardona has done amazing work in GCW. I love that entire thing. It was sort of low-key my favorite feud of last year. Him and Nick Cage and Nick Gage, and all the stuff, and Effie and all the stuff he did there in GCW. You look at how Rusev became Miro. That was awesome. You look how Luke Harper turned into Brody Lee. That was transformative. That was amazing. I'm still just absolutely crushed that we lost him way too young. I think these days, if you want to show people that WWE was holding you back, you better prove it. And the best way to do that is to, wherever you go next, show them what you could do better. Let's see here. White Brownie says, do you think with Riddle and Styles recently having matches on 2.0, we'll begin to see more crossover? Yes, in fact, we talked about that over at Going In Raw this past week because PW Insider had a report that Bruce Pritchard is actually the one overseeing things creatively in NXT 2.0. And it does feel like now that he's there, and he's basically Vince's right-hand man, we will be seeing a greater effort because there's more coordination. Before NXT was on an island, and now it's sort of part of the whole thing. So I do think that we'll see more crossover before the two brands. Ascend Wrestling says, I know you mentioned interest in Stardom. I just did that. And I'm aware that you're into New Japan, but have you considered getting into Pro Wrestling Noah? They've been putting out great shows. I would love to. I would absolutely love to. And I'd love to find some sort of schedule where I can do that, where I can sort of dive into that stuff. It's just finding the time on top of everything else I'm already doing to do that. But I would absolutely love to do that at some point. Tony H., what in your mind is a match stipulation that we haven't seen yet that you would like to see in either WWE or AEW? Can be a fresh idea or something we've seen in another promotion. I love the idea. I know they already have Money in the Bank and they treat that this way, but I love the idea of Impact's Option C, and I think they did the same thing with the Gift of the Gods and Lucha Underground, where you win a title and you have that title. It's a mid-card title, but then bang, you can cash it in. I love that idea. I think it's cool. I think WWE should do that, or AEW, whatever. Let's see here. Stomper Nation. Do you think Tony Khan's lack of social media awareness will eventually come to hurt AEW? It certainly doesn't help. It certainly doesn't engender any fan sort of relations. I know he will always have his staunch defenders. There's AEW stands, if you want to call them, whatever, where they just sort of take things to the worst degree possible. And they'll defend him no matter what. WWE has the same type of people, fans. I don't think it'll help. And if it's not going to help, then yeah, I guess it could be hurting. But I don't think it's going to hurt on any sort of big, giant business degree. There's a similar question a little bit later on. Andrew Rudd, do you think segments on Raw are too long? Yeah. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Mostly, yes. They could always stand to be more efficient on Raw. Mainly, they just have way too many recaps and stuff. Honked Off John. Do you hope people just forget the Steve Austin reviews and then at Royal Rumble it'll just be a surprise entrant on people's recommendations? I don't know if people forget the Steve Austin reviews. Give me a retro idea to do for Steve Austin, because the problem I'll let you know the problem with the Steve Austin reviews. Event happens, and then we do a recap of that event on that night, on Sunday night or Saturday night, I guess these days. And then it takes me some time. By the time I've written it, performed it, and then Rob's edited it, it's usually, I mean, at the best, I might be able to get it done in a week. Probably closer to 2. Because it just takes a bit of writing to do that. And I have to be in a proper mood. And it only comes around once a month. So it's not the easiest thing to do, to be honest with you. But yeah, if I have if it's more of an evergreen thing, like a retro review, maybe I could bring it back in that form. I like doing them. I think they're hilarious. And I love people's reactions to them. It's just finding the time. Lick asks, how long do you think AEW... here's the question that's kind of related to the Tony Khan one. How long do you think AEW has before its goodwill with the fans runs out if they keep doing things like barely having women's matches, random story beats, or lackluster beef feuds, such as Sammy becoming interim champion for a few weeks or Orange Cassidy Matt Hardy feud lasting for like 10 years? I think, like anything else, AEW has various sort of honeymoon periods. They do really cool shit, like All Out last year. You get the Tony Khan situation. I don't know. I don't know. Like the whole issue with only staunchly sticking to like one women's match per episode. I think that there is a large group of people who want to see more, who want to see change. Unfortunately, I think there's a much larger group of people who are watching the show that don't seem to mind the way it is. That's why their ratings have, generally speaking, been pretty damn strong. And yeah, I think that as long as what they're doing right now continues to work from a numbers standpoint, unfortunately, you're not going to see a whole lot of change. So I don't think that fan goodwill in a larger sense is going to be a problem for AEW anytime soon. Hopefully they'll look at what they have, and if they want to continue to grow their women's division, they will add more women's wrestling to their product. But you know, like anything else, wrestling is difficult to book, to promote. Injuries happen. Wrestlers might, protest certain creative decisions. I have no idea what's going on backstage there. I personally still really enjoy the product, but I fully admit it's not perfect. There are a lot of things AEW could do better. I think a lot of the issues out there that have been brought up in various circles of the internet wrestling community are completely valid. That doesn't stop me from being able to enjoy what we have in front of us. Let's see here. We'll end on this one from Alyssa. Says, do you think there's any solution to fix the WWE women's tag division at this point? Or would they be better off scrapping those belts? I'll be completely honest with you. They don't have a tag division. That's the problem. They take the mid card and they just start throwing random people together as tag teams. And it's just silly. It's lackluster. It doesn't make any sense. I would probably, if they're not going to do it properly, I think they can fix it. The solution is simple. create tag teams and keep them together. You don't have Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH, two people who should be in singles action, thrown together as a tag team. You bring up people like Casey Canzero and Caden Carter. You bring up, well, I mean, it's a little early for Toxic Attraction, but they have a legit tag team. NXT does tag teams a lot better than you got Persia and Indy over there. NXT does women's tag team a lot better than the main roster does. So you just bring them up and you have the tag team titles on main roster as well. Or you do what I think they should do on main roster. Maybe just get rid of the tag team titles in the women's division and add a mid-card title to each brand. Then you'll have something else for people to fight over. Or you just need to make tag teams because there's no actual tag teams there. Anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Ask WrestleJuice. Thanks all everybody out there for your questions. I appreciate it. I'm going to do more of these next week, and I promise I'm going to do some other videos. Give me some video ideas. Give me some Stone Cold Retro review ideas. Drop them in the comments. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Watch one of these other videos while you're here at the channel. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.